So disappointing my customers, right? Because if we get it wrong with our store customers, the ramifications of that are big, right? And that getting it wrong for them can be, I mean, it stems from inventory. Do we have the right inventory? Did the inventory come in correct? I mean, we're offshoring, right? So we don't get to inspect the line and see how things are coming off. I mean, we receive it, we pay for it, we, put it out there. And yes, there's quality control, but it's like, wow, okay, if the size on this or, the labeling on that, and you do a whole run of mistakes and you don't catch it until it's in a store, I mean, that ruins relationships. And so disappointing my store customers is probably the biggest deal. And that's what I worry about most.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of the Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com. We're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great episode, and it's one of the fun ones. All of them are fun, but it's a where are they at now episode where we kind of catch up about 6 months or so later from the last episode. And so if you didn't hear the last episode, definitely make sure to go and catch up on that one first. We're having Terresa Zimmerman back on, and this is a quick reminder. So Terresa was with Wood Underwear, which is always kind of a fun business and kind of a catchy name. And so now we're going to catch up a little bit where she's at today and talk a little bit everything from supply chain issues to launching a book to launching a different business, and it's recently launched, having one of the best years ever with the some of the current businesses with Wood Underwear, and have a great conversation. So with that much as a introduction, welcome back onto the podcast, Terresa.
Thank you. No, I love that you're doing this. Thank you for inviting me back.
Absolutely. So now before we dive into what's been over the past 6 months, just for those that may not have heard the original episode, or if it's been a little while since they heard the last episode, kind of remind people where you were at about 6 months ago.
Yeah, well, so physically, I think I was sitting in the little mountain town of Whitefish, Montana. My husband and I were doing a work away from home for the month, and so it was beautiful. It was, I call it mud season. It was not winter anymore, but not quite spring. So it was just a gorgeous time to be up there, and it was quiet. And we were getting ready to really plan for the receiving of our spring line for Wood Underwear, and go through spring and summer sales, which, retail has, I guess COVID changes everything, but retail was really starting to wake up right about then, right about April, May-ish timeframe, especially men's retail, which is where we primarily focus. And so we ended up having a really great spring. The supply chain issues were starting back then. People haven't really started hearing about them until now. Probably October is when the mass consumers started hearing about the supply chain issues, but we were feeling it then. Prices were already rising and all of that. So it was a fun spring to manage and to try to foresee the future. But we didn't foresee, and I know we're going to talk about this later, but we definitely didn't foresee the 130 ships off of the port of LA and Long Beach happening right now. So.
No, and getting into that just a little bit, because I think it's one where, as you're probably aware, I work with a ton of startups and small businesses. Some of them, if you're on different industries, certainly have been hit differently. Some of them have been reasonably unscathed and hasn't had much impact. Other ones I'm talking about saying, we have had our best year ever on sales, but we can't deliver. I mean, we've got purchase orders that are sitting out there, and none of our fault. We had the products, we would absolutely ship them, and yet they're waiting for months on end to fulfill orders, and they're having the best sales year ever and the worst fulfillment year ever. So how's that kind of gone for you guys? Have you seen it's been one where you've been able to manage through it, or you're mostly US based or foreign based, or kind of give us a little bit of insight there?
No, so we're definitely outsourced. We're offshore with our manufacturing for sure, because we just don't have the manufacturing capability here to do what we need to do for the most part, not on a mass scale. And so most of the underwear business and most of the apparel business, really, if you looked at it percentage wise, is offshore. It's not in the United States. A lot more of the raw product is going from here to other places and then coming back, which is fabulous. And there's some headway being made for manufacturing in the United States, but little guys like me are not going to be the front runners on that. We have to take advantage and draft off the big guys who make that stuff happen here. And I can't wait for that to happen so we can do made in the USA products. So we are managing through, we have to, I mean, you manage through, you die, right? But the challenge is cost, right? And it's inflation. And I hear, I stopped watching news maybe like 18 months ago because it just pisses me off. I'm
right there with you. I haven't given up on written or reading it online, but listening to it, I was like, okay, I gotta tune out.
Yeah. So I have to allow myself, a few minutes a day, but I have to, there's screen time. I got to turn it off. But I just hear these guys, all these politicians out there, and it really doesn't matter what party they're coming from. They're also, inflation's no big deal. There's no inflation. It's spot inflation. Well, that's just a bunch of malarkey.
Garbage. Yeah.
Yeah. Try to keep it clean. Sorry. Because, we are still paying higher customs duties from a couple of years ago when they went up. Right. And then this year we're paying, in the spring, I was paying 2.5 times, maybe almost 3 times my shipping logistic rates to come into the United States for the first time. And then this fall, my rates went up from normal to 4 times. And they actually even changed mid shipment. I had a container on the water, and I got a call. It was supposed to land on the 4th of October. On the 2nd of October, Saturday, I get the note saying, hey, your price just increased, right? So by like 18% on the water.
That's crazy.
Right. That's like, I was talking with my guys at the warehouse, and Kevin, he's like, that's like you're on an airplane going, New York to LA.
Hey, now that we have you on the airplane and you can't do a thing about it, we're going to double your air flight or double your price.
You owe us $100 right now, or you got to get out, right? I mean, so what do? You pay it, right? You pay it.
Oh, and one question, kind of just because I find it interesting, and maybe just a bit of an aside. So you're facing
geek out on this stuff. I'm telling you.
I could go off for a long time, and we'd probably find it very interesting. Everybody be like, okay, I'm tuned it out. But so you take that, and you're dealing with that, and do you? I think that it puts businesses in the uncomfortable situation of do I raise all my rates on all my products, which then you're worried that are your customers going to leave or stop buying because now you went from, hey, a product that was what they probably thought was reasonably priced to one that, be not out of your control, but now is significantly higher price. Or do you try and eat into your profit margins, or you try and defer that cost, or kind of as a business, how do you deal with mid shipment, the price going up? And then how do you then adjust your prices accordingly?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's hard, and you've got to make some hard decisions about it for sure. So I work in the world of specialty stores, boutiques. These are usually owner operated, whether they're multiple doors or just a single door. So I love Main Street. I think I went off on that last time. But I love working with my customers who own their businesses, who know their customers, they're, part of their communities. And so my business is more relationship driven, as opposed to some of the corporations that, can come at it a different way, and maybe just a little bit more black and white numbers. For me, it's relationship. And what I did in the spring, when my rates were going up and I was still paying the higher customs rate that we were expecting to go down, and it hasn't yet, I made a promise to my customers and my prospects that for this year, I would keep my rates as they were. So I'm eating that cost. And that was before, this recent spat of, rate hikes on my shipping. So it's hurting me a little bit more than I expected it to, but it's a commitment that I made to my, my base. And, but, in January, that's going to have to change. So, and I think the stores too are doing what they can to, we limit our margins, they're limiting their margins so that the consumer can still get what they want and they can still have a robust business, even if they're eating a little bit more of the price. Now, again, that's on the that's on the more relationship side of the business. But I can tell you at the shows that I was at, in the trade shows I was at in July, August, people were, having their meetings, and almost to a brand, every single one of them was telling their customers, that product you pre-ordered that's supposed to arrive next month, well, that product is now 20% more, or whatever that percentage is. And the buyers were just having to say, okay. So it's hard.
Yeah, and I think that one's always tough. And I think it's hidden, even if you're in a business where you're not directly affected. And, as an example, the intellectual property law firm I run doesn't necessarily have physical products, we have a few like gift boxes and other things, but other than, as far as our main core products, we don't have any physical products. So we don't have that. But even we're seeing all, service providers or people that we use and in our back end and other things, those prices are going up, and you got kind of hitting that same spot of, hey, are we going to significantly, reasonably, raise our rates? And when we have 2 months to go for the end of the year, because people typically have been conditioned that rates don't go up until the beginning of next year. And so how do you adjust that midstream? So I think, it's interesting to see that impact across the board, whether it hits you directly or hits you indirectly, because everybody's dealing with that. And I don't think it's going away. It's not going away quickly.
No, it's not. But stores don't have a choice. They've got to take it if they want product in their store to sell for holiday, right? Yep. So, you can hold people over a barrel, or in my case, I have it's just part of the culture of my business. I'm going to work with my customers.
Right.
I'm not going to blackmail them like the shipping line did me, 18% price increase or else, right? What, they're going to dump my product in the water or ship it back? I don't know what they would do, but yeah, it's a little crazy. So, I take the approach of, my whole, supply chain, we're all in it together. The guys I service, the people servicing me, there's only so much I can do about what I'm buying, but I can certainly affect, what I'm selling and how I'm selling it.
No, and I think that's definitely some good points. So now we'll go on to maybe a lighter side of things, just because that one is one where everybody's just like, oh, I just want inflation to go away. I want supply, just go back to normal, please. But not going away. But now you've also, in the midst of that, you've done a couple of additional things that are, different aspects or different businesses. You've launched just recently, I think the last month or so, launched another business, Say Hi, and you've also done a book. So maybe tell us a little bit about how those are going for you.
So this is crazy. If we picked a different 6-month period, I probably wouldn't have anything to say to you that's different, but this 6 months has been just crazy cool and fun. And in fact, Say Hi, you mentioned Say Hi. So Say Hi, Say Hi, actually, the conversation started 6 months ago when I was in that mountain town in Whitefish, and my business partner, Amy, it's her brainchild, and she approached me then, and we started talking about it. As soon as I got back to Raleigh from Montana, we got together, we did our handshake deal, we started building this product and launched it October 4th. So it's basically an employee engagement app. It delivers a question every day to your employee base. It's for enterprise, so larger companies. And the reason for that is because all of the answers are anonymized, if that's a word. I think that's a word.
We'll go with it. Whether or not it's a word, we're going to say it is.
You know what I mean? They're the answer. A lot of employees don't answer internal surveys, honestly or frankly, because they're not sure where the answers are going and who's going to read them and who has access, and whether they're trying to give you a right answer or the answer you want to hear. And then those surveys also don't necessarily do anything, right? You get the results and maybe somebody tells you what the results are, but then it's done. And Say Hi, basically, it's just one a day. You log in, you answer your question, it goes away. You don't think about it. And the end of every month, you basically get your insights report with an action item. And the insights report shows you the whole organization, and then it drills down into you for your specific challenge question. And it's really supposed to be a question that starts conversations with your team, with your manager. You get a picture of where everybody else is sitting on things like trust, right? Maybe a question is, do you trust, if you went away on holiday for 5 days, do you trust that your team would, pick up whatever they needed to pick up or do what they needed to do? Where's your level of trust in that? Do you feel safe? how taken care of. I mean, there's all kinds of questions about employee health and wellness and brand values and those sorts of things. And so you get this report that gives you that snapshot of where the organization sits in that. And then the action question is something you're supposed to think about and go talk to your manager about, or talk to your team about if you're the manager. So there's an immediate action to it with the context of where you sit in the organization, and it's all of the data is pulled outside the organization. It never lives within the organization. So people can be, more honest about it. And it's just a very low impact way to, engage with people every day.
No, and I think that's smart, because I think that, to your point, one of the bigger, first of all, it's always hard to get feedback from people. If you sit down with them, it can be a bit intimidating. And are you really going to tell your boss what you're frustrated about? Because they can turn around and say, well, if you're not happy, go somewhere else, type of a thing. And on the other hand, you also, as an employer, you're saying, hey, we want to keep our employees happy and engaged, but how do we do that? And how do we make it productive? So it's not just, hey, every time we pull them in the office, they're just saying, well, I'd love to get a raise if you want to give me more money. And it's like, well, yes, everybody wants more money, but what can we do to otherwise improve the business? So I think making that one step removed, or anonymizing it, so to speak, allows for a more open dialogue. So that one launched about a month ago, if I remember,
October
when we talked.
4th. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How's it gone since you launched it?
Yeah, so we're chipping away. We're selling, sell. So hopefully I can give you an update at some point in the future and tell you that we've already made our $1 million. So we'll.
All right. Well, I look forward to it, and that'll have to be another fun follow up when you hit the $1 million mark. You'll have to reach back out and let me know.
All right, good. Well, yeah. So, I mean, it's that you mentioned the money thing, right? And that people think of those conversations as that, what do you need? What can I give you? And that's very transactional. And I think that people aren't trading on the transactional right now, because right now you can't say, well, if you don't like it, go get another job, because people are. I mean, it's the great resignation, right? Yep. And people haven't been working together physically for 20 months or 18 months. And a lot of those people have never met their colleagues because they just joined the workforce or changed jobs during that period of time. And so there's no stickiness for companies. And if you're a manager, you don't necessarily know what to talk about with this employee that you may not have met or may not have seen for 18 months. And as an employee, what are you going to talk to your manager about? I mean, it's like, how do you take the transaction out of it and start building that brand stickiness and that relationship stickiness to the actual business to help your employees have better health, have them feel better about what they're doing, have them feel cared about, what they're doing has purpose. And unless you have that relationship based thing, you don't get that, especially as a remote worker. So this is, the intention of this is to really help companies care for their employees in I guess not necessarily a structured way, but we're giving them conversations to have that the whole organization can do at once. And so there's a purpose to them. And
I think that definitely makes sense, and I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm shocked that it's already not $1 million business in a month, but I definitely think it has that great opportunity, and excited to hear where it goes. And amidst launching that business as well, you've also written a book, and I can't remember if the book is out yet or it's getting close to going out. So help us understand where that's as well.
It's out. Yes. Oh Lords. And this is a total departure from what we've just been talking about. Oh Lords is basically life lessons told through dating stories. So you have to sort of switch off that brain and go to a different brain to change discussions here. But my co-author, Jess Aberhart, and I, in November of 2019, we were at a networking event, and she came in and she's talking about, she just got off a plane last night, and this guy was hitting on her. She was sort of hunkering down in her seat, headphones, hoodie up, and he was having none of it. He was going to talk to her. So it worked for him, because she ended up giving him her phone number. And so she was coming in talking about that. And the whole group, we started talking about dating stories. And by the end of the night, we kind of did a pinky promise that we were going to actually sit down and write this book. And, silver linings out of a COVID year, that shut down for 2 or 3 months gave us the time to do it. because working in retail that was shut down, I mean, that's what I did. So we actually sat down and wrote it, and the writing process probably 4 months, and then we had to pick a time we had to figure out what to do with it, and then just started shipping October 1st, and
All
it's
right,
for
just
sale
as a
wherever books are sold.
shameless self plug for you, where do people find the book if they're interested?
Everywhere. Target.com, barnesandnoble.com, your local bookstore. One thing that I learned, me loving Main Street, is that there is a website called IndieBound, INDIE bound.org, that will take you to all of your independent bookstores to buy books online from a store on Main Street. So go there. That's my favorite. I mean, of course, we're on Amazon and everywhere else too, but support your local bookstores.
All right, definitely think that's a great to support the local mom and pop shops and the small bookstores, and if not, they can still probably get it on the bigger ones as well.
They absolutely can, yeah.
So last thing before we always have the last question, but before we dive to that, now going to the mainstay maybe of the business, or the one that you were on the show before, which is we touched a little bit on the supply chain issue, but with wood underwear, while you're doing supply chain issues, I think when we talked about a bit before, you've also had one of your best years or sales and navigating that, figuring that out. So on the sales side, how has that gotten for you?
Yeah, no, it's going really well. I mean, I think that I think the consumer has come back strong. The consumers and the retail stores have come back, I think, healthier. We lost a lot of stores. A lot of them had to shut down. They didn't have a choice. But it is some of it was phasing out, just an age thing, and retiring, and not a great time to sell a business. Some of it was that they had to sell. They were not healthy. So I think at the end of the day, what we're going to end up with at the store level is healthier stores, and a healthier mix of things. And but yeah, people are shopping. The stores had to pivot and start serving people in way different ways, and none of those ways are going to go away. I mean, there's going to be FaceTime shopping, there's going to be curbside delivery, there's going to be door-to-door delivery same day, and none of that stuff's going to stop, which I think is fabulous for retail. And that's, we're definitely seeing that. So our online sales as a percentage, of course, from last year have gone down, because last year it was basically only online sales. But our new store business is crazy good. We've opened up a couple new channels, including women's lingerie stores. We only sell men's underwear, undershirts, and loungewear, but we're selling into women's underwear stores and lingerie stores, and they're just, some of these women are just fabulous. I mean, they're dynamos, and they're going gangbusters. So having really
is women's lingerie line, or is it men's underwear in women's or lingerie stores?
Men's underwear in women's lingerie stores, right? It's maybe that guilty purchase, right? You go in and spend $1,000 on bras, and let me pick up my guy a little, All
right, I better get them something so they don't feel that. Although half the time when you're buying lingerie, you're probably doing it as much for the other individual as you are yourself. So that's a whole different conversation for another day.
Yeah.
No, that's fun. So I think that's cool though, that you also are looking and saying, okay, other retail stores, some of them are shutting down. We're going to have to pivot. We'll go in and we'll, go into the, I don't know, non-traditional, but a different route. You'll also, look to pick that up and pivot. Because I think that's what, separates it short, or some of the stores. Some of them is beyond their control, but some of them, the ones that are really thriving are the ones that are saying, okay, you know what, this is beyond our control. We can't control what we can't control, but for those things we're going to have to adjust and pivot in order to continue to thrive. So I think that's cool.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And it's the people that have relationships with their customers who are doing really, really well, because the service mindset for somebody is slightly different than the service mindset of maybe a stranger coming in. So there's some really amazing service things happening at retail, at Main Street retail. And we've changed too. I mean, we're doing a whole lot more drop ship for our customers. We never did drop ship as a rule before 2020. It was just way too hard to manage. And then last year we were forced to, and this year it's just a service that we've added on, and it helps the retailer because they don't have to carry a lot of stock. It's in our warehouse anyway. So, we're able to drop ship, and that's a flexibility that that we'll continue with as well. So stores are continuing with their different ways of serving their customers, and we're also trying to figure out better ways to service them so that, we're all in this together. So it's been working really well. Even just having the flexibility of having that, even if they don't use it, is an advantage.
Well, I think that's great. And yeah, and I think that allowing that flexibility of, hey, as you guys are pivoting and adjusting, we're also doing our part with our side of relationship to make it something that's sustainable and works for their arrangement, and then leveraging those relationships. So
Yeah.
well, we're reaching towards the end of the podcast, and I'm sure we could go on a much longer conversation and be enjoyable to us. But just for the sake of time, so people can have a reasonable bite-sized episode.
Yeah.
As we get to the end of the episode, I always shift on the update episodes or the Where You At Now episodes to ask a bit of a different question, which is fun. Which is, a lot of times, especially as you're getting farther into your business, you learn a lot of the things that you didn't know on the front end. Probably if you knew them on the front end, you would have never got going, because you would have learned all the things that would have scared you off in the first place. But so that naivety is probably what gets everybody going. But as you learn more, you also can tend to become aware of things that you should be worried about or be scared of or be afraid of. And yet you have to deal with those as you're continuing to build the business. So with that, question I always ask is, as an entrepreneur, as a startup, as a small business, what's your biggest fear, and how do you deal with it?
Oh. Yeah. So if it has to be just one, it is
biggest. There can be multiple, but we'll go with the biggest.
Yeah. Well, so disappointing my customers, right? Because if we get it wrong with our store customers, the ramifications of that are big, right? And that getting it wrong for them can be, it stems from inventory. Do we have the right inventory? Did the inventory come in correct? I mean, we're offshoring, right? So we don't get to inspect the line and see how things are coming off. I mean, we receive it, we pay for it, we, put it out there. And yes, there's quality control, but it's like, wow, okay, if the size on this or, the labeling on that, and you do a whole run of mistakes and you don't catch it until it's in a store. I mean, that ruins relationships. And so disappointing my store customers is probably the biggest deal. And that's what I worry about most. Now, the things that can kill my business are things like, a tanker not getting, or a container ship not getting to port, like ever, or dropping anchor somewhere and I have to figure out where my stuff is, or it doesn't show up, missing a season. And that's happened to me, actually. Not that, a container ship sank, but that I had to completely forego a season of new goods because it didn't come in right. And that's frightening. It ruins your whole year.
I'm sure. And it's one where it's, there's enough lead time, you have to do it. It's not just like you can, tomorrow, we're going to change, we'll reorder, we'll do it.
Yeah.
It's one. And then on the other hand, kind of the thing you've talked about is it's also the relationships that on short term, you might be able to, figure out a way to put out an inferior product, convince people to pay it, and they have to eat it. And on the long hand, they're going to say, well, we didn't really like that product, we're not going to come back to them. So I think that's
it can put you out of business. It can put you out of business one way or the other. Either way you go. I mean, it can put you out of business.
Yeah, and it's hard because sometimes if you're in a business saying we're out of money, we have to make this sell, we have to make this work, then you're looking at the short term, and yet sometimes you make the short term decisions and it harms you in the long run. And sometimes if you don't have the short term, the long run doesn't matter. So it's always that balance and trying to figure it out. But I think maintaining those relationships is a great takeaway of doing that as well.
Yeah.
Well, if people want to reach out to you, they want to use a Say Hi app, or they want to use the Say Hi software, they want to get your book, they want to buy your wood underwear or any of the other things that you have going on, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
So olords.com is for the book, and anything you need to know. We just were given a gold award from Literary Titans, and we came out as the hottest #1 bestseller on Amazon in the first 24 hours out. So we're happy about that. Anyway, olords.com on that front. If you're an enterprise, 200 plus people, in order for us to anonymize the data, 200 plus people. Sayhi.io. So it's SAYHII.io. and or just reach out to me, Terresa at woodunderwear.com. Our website, woodunderwear.com, also has a store finder and all of that. So would love to hear anybody that wants to hear any more about any of those three things.
All right. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out to you, contact you, support you, and find out more. So, well, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been it's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners, if you have your own journey to tell, or have your own expertise to share, or you want to catch up if you've already been on the podcast, and you're all the above, we'd love to have you on. Feel free to just go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things, make sure to listen, make sure to subscribe, make sure to share so everybody can find out about our awesome episodes. And last but not least, if you ever need help with patents, trademarks, or anything else with your business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat. Well, thank you again, Terresa, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thank you, Devin.